taking it just one step at a time. Think about creative and resourceful ways that you can begin to save money right away. Maybe taking change from grocery receipts, putting money aside from bonuses or increases that you get in the workplace, earning extra income from maybe selling an asset or craft that you might do, and consider putting any funds into a new bank account, safe deposit box, or maybe with a friend or family. Take stock of your current assets and liabilities, keeping track of how jointly held funds are spent. You might be asked to account for those later in a dissolution process. And if you have jointly held bank accounts, you might consider taking at least half right away. Can an order of protection help secure finances? It can. It can hopefully remove or ban the batterer from your home or your workplace, or from having contact, including calling or emailing, texting, and social media. It can also be a tool for economic relief. In an order for protection, you can ask for temporary child or spousal support, that the other person continue paying the mortgage or their part of the rent, possession of property such as a car, and requiring that other person to continue paying for insurance for that vehicle. It's also important to look at safety when we're considering searching for housing. If you can limit your housing search to private property owners rather than large property management firms, you might be able to keep your information off of the internet through credit reports. You might offer to provide your own copy of your credit report showing up as a self-inquiry and not have to reveal the location of where you're currently asked. And if you are sharing housing, you might be able to ask that person if they could put the utilities in their name, once again to keep your name off the grid. Transitional housing programs might be an option for someone who's leaving an emergency shelter, but they really are not available in all areas. Section 8 programming makes privately owned rental housing affordable to low-income renters, although we do know there are long waiting lists for those programs. It is important before you rent, though, to determine how much you can afford to pay. It's recommended that your rent should not exceed the top level of 30% of your income. If you reach that 50% level, that's going much too high to have half of your income going towards your rent. So figure out what your income is, figure out 30%, and try to find an apartment that falls within that range. If you're currently renting or leasing with a person who's been abusive to you, you might be able to ask for what's called a lease bifurcation, which allows for the removal of you or your partner's name from the lease. In addition, in Minnesota, we have great laws that would allow you to terminate a lease. You can go to Law Help MN to find out exactly how you would do that, what type of notice is required and payment is required, and what that time frame looks like. Before you sign a lease on a new housing unit, make sure that you don't put money down unless you're sure you want the unit. You might lose any of that money that you put down if you end up not moving in. You're going to want to calculate all your anticipated costs of the unit with your utilities, gas, electricity. Are they charging you for parking when you're determining whether you can afford it or not? And then review the lease agreement to make sure that the landlord has a responsibility to take care of your maintenance, emergencies that are happening, a point of contact and time frame for response so that you know exactly what it's going to be like to live there and have those needs taken care of. It's important to think of computer and technology considerations as well. Your personal information may be online. Go ahead and do a Google search of your own name and see what comes up under that. Consider setting up a news alert to notify you whenever your name, address, or phone numbers are being used. And be cautious about opening up emails and attachments from your former partner or an unknown sender due to spyware then being downloaded into your computer. The National Network to End Domestic Violence has a safety net project, and you can go to their website for more tips on computer and technology considerations. Another aspect of financial safety planning includes organizing and keeping documents safe. Consider financial records. Do you have bank statements, CD records, credit card agreements, money order receipts, loan documents, anything related to public assistance. You're going to want to have those records available to you. Legal documents for yourself and your children, such as birth certificates, your marriage license, a divorce decree if you have that, Social Security cards, the originals are usually what are needed, a will, immigration paperwork, and if you have an order for protection, having that as well for legal documents. Your property documents, consider keeping copies of any titles or deeds to property, a copy of your rental or lease agreement so you know what those expectations are, vehicle registration and insurance policies, and you can also take a photo or a video of valuables. A lot of times when things like a dissolution starts to come about, people can remove things from a household even though they may be prohibited from doing that. And if you have a picture of it, you would be able to add that in as an asset that was taken. Health records as well, medical, dental, and vision records, any type of insurance policies for health, life, or disability, medical expense receipts as you think about taxes for the next year, and then a list of any of your service providers. Expense documents like your household bills, monthly statements, and receipts can be important to have as well when you have to go into court and prove certain things so that you get a fair deal financially. The last thing that we're going to look at is examples of workplace safety considerations. If it's safe to disclose to your employer what you're going through, you might consider the following: providing your employer with a copy of your protection order and a photo of your abuser, asking security to escort you to and from the building, and maybe having a way to screen your calls, but make sure that you're saving any threatening message, whether on a work line or your cell phone that you receive. The Allstate Foundation Career Empowerment Curriculum also has some ideas for your safety in the workplace.